Think like a king, or get played like a pawn. You think you understand power. You've read the quotes, you've seen the memes, but here's what most people miss. Machiavelli wasn't writing a philosophy book. He was writing a warning, a manual for those who are tired of being used. And if you're watching this, there's a good chance you've already felt it. The moment you trusted someone too much, the moment you revealed your plan, the moment you were kind to someone who used that kindness against you. You thought something went wrong. Nothing went wrong. You were simply playing the game without knowing the rules. And that is the most dangerous position a person can be in. Not weak, not unintelligent, just uninformed. Machiavelli watched princes fall. He watched brilliant men lose everything, not because they lacked power, but because they didn't understand it. He wrote The Prince not for tyrants. He wrote it for the aware, for the ones willing to see clearly. What I'm going to show you isn't cruelty. It isn't manipulation for its own sake. It's clarity. The kind most people never develop, because they're too busy being liked. And here is what that costs them. Everything. Most people believe the world rewards goodness. They were taught this early. Be kind, be honest, be generous, and people will treat you well. That belief is not wrong everywhere. But in the arena of power, in the hierarchy of organizations, social circles, and ambition, that belief will cost you. Machiavelli saw this with cold precision. He watched good men destroyed by worse men, not because evil is stronger than good, but because good men refused to see the board. They played with their hearts. The board doesn't care about your heart. It cares about position, about leverage, about who controls what. The naive person enters every room assuming equality. They share, they confide, they explain themselves. They think transparency builds trust, and sometimes it does. But here's what most people don't realize. The moment you explain yourself fully, you remove your mystery. The moment you share your plans, you hand someone a map to your vulnerabilities. Machiavelli understood this. Your openness isn't warmth to everyone in that room. To some, it's inventory. They're cataloging what you want, what you fear, what you need, and they will use it. Not because they're monsters, because that's how power works, when you're not paying attention. Let's go deeper. There is a concept Machiavelli returns to again and again. He calls it Virtù. Not virtue in the moral sense. Something different. Something closer to force of will. The capacity to bend circumstances toward your intention. Most people don't have it. Not because they're weak. Because they've never been forced to develop it. They've always waited. They've let the current carry them. They've let other people's decisions define their position. Machiavelli called this living at the mercy of fortune. And fortune, he said, is a river. Sometimes calm, sometimes catastrophic. The person without virtù is swept away. The person with it builds the embankment. They prepare. They act before they're forced to. This is the first mental shift. You stop reacting. You start positioning. You stop asking what is happening to you. You start asking, what am I building? What leverage do I have right now? What am I 2 steps ahead of? This is the king's mindset versus the pawn's. The pawn responds, the king anticipates. And that single difference between reaction and anticipation explains almost every gap you see between the people around you and the ones who seem to move through the world differently. Here is something Machiavelli understood about human nature that most people find uncomfortable. People don't follow strength because they respect it. They follow it because it makes them feel safe. This is the psychology behind every social hierarchy you've ever been part of. The workplace, the friend group, the family dynamic. Someone holds the frame. Everyone else, consciously or not, adjusts to it. If you've ever walked into a room and felt immediately smaller, that's not your imagination. That's a frame. Someone in that room is projecting certainty, and your nervous system, wired for social hierarchy, responded. The pawn adjusts. The king sets the frame. And here's what most people never learn. Frames aren't held by aggression. They're held by consistency, by not needing approval, by being the one person in the room who doesn't flinch when questioned. Machiavelli wasn't describing a monster. He was describing composure under pressure, the ability to stay clear when everything around you is noisy. Your stillness becomes a signal, not arrogance. Signal. The person who can sit with silence while others rush to fill it controls the room without saying a word. Now, this is where it gets psychological. Machiavelli wrote something that most people read and then immediately try to argue against. He said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." People hate this line. They call it cruel. But read it again. He didn't say be feared instead of respected. He didn't say cause harm. He was making a strategic observation about reliability. Love, he argued, is conditional. It depends on how someone feels about you in any given moment. Fear, not physical fear but consequence, is consistent. The person who knows you have standards, who knows you will walk away, who knows you do not tolerate dishonesty, that person treats you differently, not out of terror, out of respect for your boundaries. You've seen this. You've seen the person everyone walks over, endlessly kind, endlessly available, endlessly accommodating, and endlessly ignored. Then you've seen the person who simply doesn't chase, who says no without drama, who doesn't explain themselves, and somehow, people move toward them. That's not mystery. That's leverage, not cruelty. Just the quiet authority that comes from knowing your own value and refusing to discount it. Let's talk about information. This one is subtle, but it's where most people lose more than they realize. Every time you speak about yourself freely, your plans, your fears, your desires, you give someone a coordinate. You make yourself easier to predict, easier to influence. Machiavelli was deeply suspicious of advisors for this reason. He knew that information is currency, and most people spend it like it's free. You tell someone your ambition, now they know what you want. You tell someone your insecurity, now they know where to press. You tell someone your next move, now they can prepare for it, or worse, take it. This isn't paranoia, it's economics. Your inner world has value precisely because it's private. The person who reveals everything is readable, and a readable person is a manageable one. Start thinking about your words as positions on a board. Not every piece needs to be visible. Not every thought needs a voice. There is a version of you that speaks when it's useful and stays quiet when it's powerful. The quiet version is usually stronger. Let that sit for a second. But here's what most people don't realize. Silence isn't just protection, it's projection. When you stop explaining yourself, other people fill the gap. And they typically fill it with something that serves you. You walk into a room and say little. You observe. You ask careful questions. You don't volunteer your position. People begin to project onto you. Intelligence, depth, confidence. They sense something behind the stillness. They don't know what it is. That uncertainty keeps them engaged. Machiavelli understood that mystique is not performed. It emerges from restraint, from knowing more than you show, from acting on information others don't have. This is why the most powerful figures in any room are rarely the loudest. They're the most informed, and the least visible about it. Your depth becomes an asset only when you stop pouring it out freely. The ocean doesn't explain itself, it just is. And that presence, still, vast, unreadable, commands more attention than 1,000 words ever could. Start applying this consciously, not to manipulate, to preserve. What you protect, you keep. What you broadcast, you surrender. You've probably felt this before. You share something real, something you care about, and the reaction is wrong. Not hostile, just wrong. A half smile, a quick subject change, a subtle dismissal, and you feel it. That specific deflation. What happened there? Machiavelli would tell you that most people cannot hold another person's strength without flinching. Not because they're malicious, because your clarity reminds them of their own compromise. Your vision exposes their stagnation. Your discipline makes their comfort feel like failure. They don't attack you because you're wrong. They retreat because you're right. This is something most high-awareness people experience but can't name. Your presence becomes a mirror, and not everyone wants to see their reflection. The pawn stays small to keep the peace. The king doesn't shrink, not out of arrogance, because shrinking costs too much. Every time you make yourself smaller so someone else feels comfortable, you are paying a tax. And that tax, over years, over a decade, accumulates into something you recognize as resentment, as quiet exhaustion, as the feeling that you've been playing a game designed for someone else. You have been. It's time to understand the actual rules. Machiavelli wrote about the lion and the fox, two archetypes, two modes of operating. The lion holds power through force, through presence, through sheer, undeniable weight. The fox holds it through intelligence, through knowing when to move, when to wait, when to appear weak. He didn't say choose one. He said you need both. Most people are neither. They're neither lion nor fox. They're something worse, predictable. They telegraph their moves. They react emotionally. They mistake busyness for strategy. They confuse loyalty with submission. A real player shifts between modes. You know when to be the lion. You walk in with certainty. You hold your ground. You don't apologize for your space. And you know when to be the fox. You wait. You watch. You let the other person reveal themselves. You ask one question and listen for 3 answers. Not just the words, the pauses, the redirections, the things they almost said. The game isn't won by being the strongest. It's won by being the most aware. And awareness is the one thing you can develop regardless of your position, your resources, or your starting point. Let's talk about loyalty, because Machiavelli is often misread here. People think he dismissed loyalty entirely. He didn't. He was precise about it. He said, loyalty, given without judgment, isn't virtue, it's naivety. There's a difference between being loyal and being useful to someone else's agenda. Most people confuse the two. They stay in situations long past the point of value because they feel obligated. They support people who don't support them back. They give energy to relationships that drain them, and they call this loyalty. Machiavelli would call it something else. He'd call it the pawn's mistake. The pawn believes loyalty is given to the role, the title, the relationship label. The king understands something colder. Loyalty is an exchange. It has conditions. Not cruel ones, just honest ones. You give your commitment to those who demonstrate that your commitment matters. You reserve your trust for those who've proven they can hold it. This isn't cynicism. This is clarity. And once you apply it, once you stop bleeding loyalty into situations that don't deserve it, you'll feel something shift. Your energy returns. Your judgment sharpens. And you start building with people who are actually building with you.
This next one is harder. It requires you to look inward, not outward.
Machiavelli wrote about self-deception with a precision that most people overlook. He warned against princes who surrounded themselves with flatterers, people who only confirmed what the prince already believed, who told him he was winning, even when he was losing. You've been that prince. Everyone has. The people around you who always agree, who reflect your beliefs back without friction. They feel like allies, they feel safe, but they are making you weaker with every interaction. Because reality doesn't care about your comfort, and the longer you're insulated from honest feedback, the less equipped you are to respond to actual pressure when it arrives. The king who only hears yes is not a king. He's a prisoner, surrounded by walls he built himself. What Machiavelli demanded was ruthless self-assessment, not self-criticism as a punishment, as a tool. You look at your position clearly. Where are you actually strong? Where are you exposed? What are you avoiding? Because it's uncomfortable. The 1% who operate at the level Machiavelli described don't have fewer blind spots. They just go looking for them before someone else exploits them. Here is where the strategic mind separates from the emotional one. Machiavelli wrote something deeply counterintuitive. He said that the appearance of virtue matters more than virtue itself. People react to this with outrage, but he was describing something psychological, not prescriptive. Think about how human perception actually works. People don't judge you by your intentions. They judge you by what they see, by how you carry yourself, by the story your behavior tells them. Two people can hold identical values, but the one who projects confidence, who moves deliberately, who maintains composure under pressure, that person is treated differently. By employers, by peers, by strangers, by anyone assessing hierarchy in the room. This isn't unfair. It's just how social cognition operates. Your inner quality is invisible until it's expressed. So the work isn't just developing strength. It's learning to express it clearly, not through performance, through consistency. Show up the same way when you're being watched as when you're not. Hold your standard when it's easy and when it costs you something. That consistency over time becomes a reputation. And a reputation is one of the most durable forms of power a person can hold.
This next one is harder. It requires you to look inward, not outward.
Machiavelli wrote about self-deception with a precision that most people overlook. He warned against princes who surrounded themselves with flatterers, people who only confirmed what the prince already believed, who told him he was winning, even when he was losing. You've been that prince. Everyone has. The people around you who always agree, who reflect your beliefs back without friction. They feel like allies, they feel safe, but they are making you weaker with every interaction. Because reality doesn't care about your comfort, and the longer you're insulated from honest feedback, the less equipped you are to respond to actual pressure when it arrives. The king who only hears yes is not a king. He's a prisoner, surrounded by walls he built himself. What Machiavelli demanded was ruthless self-assessment, not self-criticism as a punishment, as a tool. You look at your position clearly. Where are you actually strong? Where are you exposed? What are you avoiding? Because it's uncomfortable. The 1% who operate at the level Machiavelli described don't have fewer blind spots. They just go looking for them before someone else exploits them. Here is where the strategic mind separates from the emotional one. Machiavelli wrote something deeply counterintuitive. He said that the appearance of virtue matters more than virtue itself. People react to this with outrage, but he was describing something psychological, not prescriptive. Think about how human perception actually works. People don't judge you by your intentions. They judge you by what they see, by how you carry yourself, by the story your behavior tells them. Two people can hold identical values, but the one who projects confidence, who moves deliberately, who maintains composure under pressure, that person is treated differently. By employers, by peers, by strangers, by anyone assessing hierarchy in the room. This isn't unfair. It's just how social cognition operates. Your inner quality is invisible until it's expressed. So the work isn't just developing strength. It's learning to express it clearly, not through performance, through consistency. Show up the same way when you're being watched as when you're not. Hold your standard when it's easy and when it costs you something. That consistency over time becomes a reputation. And a reputation is one of the most durable forms of power a person can hold.
This next one is harder. It requires you to look inward, not outward.
Machiavelli wrote about self-deception with a precision that most people overlook. He warned against princes who surrounded themselves with flatterers, people who only confirmed what the prince already believed, who told him he was winning, even when he was losing. You've been that prince. Everyone has. The people around you who always agree, who reflect your beliefs back without friction. They feel like allies. They feel safe. But they are making you weaker with every interaction. Because reality doesn't care about your comfort. And the longer you're insulated from honest feedback, the less equipped you are to respond to actual pressure when it arrives. The king who only hears yes is not a king. He's a prisoner, surrounded by walls he built himself. What Machiavelli demanded was ruthless self-assessment, not self-criticism as a punishment, as a tool. You look at your position clearly. Where are you actually strong? Where are you exposed? What are you avoiding? Because it's uncomfortable. The 1% who operate at the level Machiavelli described don't have fewer blind spots. They just go looking for them before someone else exploits them. Here is where the strategic mind separates from the emotional one. Machiavelli wrote something deeply counterintuitive. He said that the appearance of virtue matters more than virtue itself. People react to this with outrage, but he was describing something psychological, not prescriptive. Think about how human perception actually works. People don't judge you by your intentions. They judge you by what they see, by how you carry yourself, by the story your behavior tells them. Two people can hold identical values, but the one who projects confidence, who moves deliberately, who maintains composure under pressure, that person is treated differently. By employers, by peers, by strangers, by anyone assessing hierarchy in the room. This isn't unfair, it's just how social cognition operates. Your inner quality is invisible until it's expressed. So the work isn't just developing strength, it's learning to express it clearly, not through performance, through consistency. Show up the same way when you're being watched as when you're not. Hold your standard when it's easy and when it costs you something. That consistency over time becomes a reputation, and a reputation is one of the most durable forms of power a person can hold.
There's a pattern in how most people respond to criticism. They either collapse or they rage. Both are signals. Both hand over control. Machiavelli watched this dynamic constantly. The prince who broke apart under attack invited more attack. The prince who absorbed pressure without changing his face held the room. What does this look like in your actual life? Someone challenges your idea in a meeting. Someone questions your decision. Someone tests your patience in a conversation. The average person defends immediately. They explain, they justify, they over-argue. And in doing so, they reveal how much the challenge mattered to them. That's information. You just gave it away for free. The stronger move is different. You hear the challenge. You consider it genuinely. You respond from clarity, not from wound. Sometimes that means acknowledging the point, not as defeat, as confidence. The person secure enough to agree when they're wrong is far more powerful than the person who defends every position, because they can't be rattled. And a person who can't be rattled is extremely difficult to manage. Machiavelli wrote that it is the nature of men to be as much bound by benefits they confer as by those they receive. This is a psychological law. When someone does something for you, they create an investment in you. They want to see you succeed, not out of purity, because your success justifies their investment. You felt this. Someone who helped you at a critical moment, how much more they seem to care afterward. This is the psychology of reciprocity running in reverse. Most people only think about what they owe. Machiavelli thought about what they were owed. Not to exploit, to understand the exchange. Every relationship has one. Every alliance, every friendship, every professional dynamic. The question is whether the exchange is acknowledged or invisible. When it's invisible, it festers. When it's acknowledged, not loudly, not transactionally, but with awareness, it becomes the foundation of something durable. You don't need to turn every interaction into an accounting exercise, but you do need to understand what you're building and what you're draining. Because a life built on unrecognized exchanges is a life slowly going bankrupt. Here's the final piece, and it's the one Machiavelli is least credited for. He believed that the highest form of power is the ability to choose your battlefield, not to fight every fight, not to respond to every provocation, but to select, deliberately, strategically, where your energy goes
and where it doesn't. Most people spend their lives reacting to whatever comes at them. Every slight, every challenge, every distraction dressed up as an emergency. They're exhausted. They're scattered. They confuse activity with progress. Machiavelli watched this destroy otherwise capable men. They were always fighting the wrong battles, always responding instead of choosing. The king looks at the board and asks, which moves actually matter? 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what will this have been? Most of the conflicts consuming your energy right now will be invisible in 5 years. Most of the people whose approval you're chasing won't be relevant in 10. The ones who understand this move differently. They're calm in situations that would scatter everyone else, because they know what they're building. They know which battles are theirs, and they've already decided not to give their energy to anything that doesn't serve that. That decision, made clearly, held consistently, is where real power begins. Understanding who you are, what you're building, and where you refuse to spend yourself. Recognizing the patterns is only the beginning. Knowing what to do when you see them, that's an entirely different conversation. It's the conversation that finally stops you from being used, because clarity is power. And most people never reach it, not because they lack potential, but because they're spread too thin to ever see clearly. In fact, most people stay scattered on purpose. They use their many interests as a shield to avoid the risk of actually succeeding. If you've ever felt like your potential is being wasted in a dozen different directions, you need to understand why. Because your range isn't your problem. Your fear is. And that is exactly what we are going to expose next. If something here resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And if you want to go deeper into this, make sure you're subscribed.